Episode 7 was actually the first one we shot, so it was straight in with a bang because it's obviously a really intense episode. That was really fun because it kind of threw us into the deep end, and it was like, right.
Completely. We didn't know the crew that we were working with, like everybody. We hadn't worked with some of them before, and it was just, you know, you're trying to establish the pace of the thing, aren't you? And actually, this is a really pivotal scene for both of our characters, and you know, we haven't necessarily found our characters as a whole, let alone going, right, let's go straight to the peak of your character.
Because it's a turning point for your character as well. It's
completely.
Not like, oh, my character is in this place. You're literally, that's the episode where you change from one thing to another. Personally, for me, I like playing stuff at that sort of intensity is always really fun, and like I really enjoy doing it. So I loved it. Like I didn't necessarily, I don't know if I should say this, like I didn't necessarily find it a challenge. Like some of the other, you know, more somber stuff I found a bit more tricky maybe, but you know, this stuff I was like, yeah, because you could just really go for it. And also, yeah, like you said, it really established the pace for the show because there's no time to just do a wide of the whole thing, then we're over here, we're doing a close-up like you would normally. It was literally just, okay, you know, Paul, Dumbridge, director, would call stuff out in between takes, wouldn't he? Like, hang on, stop a minute, go back, do that line differently, now pick this up, and he'd say to the cameraman, right, quickly punch in on the zoom and just get this shot instead. Yeah. So it was just, the whole thing was just go.
The time we were supposed to be back at the house at 5.
Okay, just double back, forget the banging on the cupboards again for Rich, for the lines. Okay, so back down to side.
I do feel like I had a slight advantage in being one of the writers in that, keep it in terms of, because basically we shot the whole thing totally out of sequence, so the episodes were just done depending on when the location of the cast or whoever was available, so we weren't shooting chronologically at all. As we said, 7 was the first one we did. So I do feel like I did have a bit of an advantage kind of knowing exactly where we were and when, whereas I don't know whether for you it was a bit trickier because it's like, right, you're episode 7, off you go.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, it was like kind of just after Christmas, wasn't it? It's like, there you go, there's a script, get on with it. And it's like, right, okay, I've got to kind of, you know, deliver this script, and, you know, I'm working with one of the writers. There's a slap in the face for you. But, you know, it was great. And actually, we then had the basement scene as well, didn't we?
The basement was actually flooded. Basically, episode 7 came about because the house we were filming in, I'd been there before and I'd seen the cellar they had, and possibly slightly inspired by War of the Worlds, Tom Cruise version. I thought, oh, it'd be quite nice if there was a scene with these two people stuck in a cellar. So some of the writing did just come out of stuff like that. It was like, okay, how can we get them down there? What's the reason they're in the cellar? What happens in the cellar? But then, of course, we couldn't actually go in the cellar all the way because we turned up and it was flooded.
Yeah.
So, you know...
We're all in wellies, aren't we?
So we're kind of huddled on that ladder at the end and we couldn't go any further because it was like knee deep in water.
And actually, us sat this far apart, that is further apart than we were on the kind of part of the scene. Actually, we're kind of like this much together.
Right,
and Paul's like, can you give a bit more space between the characters? I was like, yeah, just move a few bricks, you know?
Yeah, and all the lighting as well. You couldn't obviously put a light down there, so people are kind of holding cables up and making sure nothing trails in the water. 7 went through a few iterations as well as to what it was. So originally we found out a little bit more about Alicia's parents. And you know, what they used to do, what she used to do. I mean, it's just one of these things that happens. We went through so many different versions of the script, and then we ended up throwing all of that out and just made it about Chloe and Dan, and and then what happens to Dan at the end and how that may or may not play into the rest of it.
It's a really nice moment, actually, isn't it? Where we're kind of, you know, you're at your kind of most vulnerable on the stairs, and I'm like, oh gosh,
we
Darren,
switch places, don't we?
Yeah, we do, completely, and it's like, you know, watching this kind of really sentimental moment between the characters, and it's nice because it really kind of gives the show a bit more depth, and I don't think it's as perhaps predictable as, you know, the viewers might think, and actually it doesn't go too far either. It just kind of gives that underlying sense, and hopefully if the writers keep us in series 2.
They'll probably keep me in, but no. I think the tricky thing with writing and playing all of it is that obviously within these really bite-sized 4-minute chunks, you're trying to find time to explore character and relationships, and that is quite tough without it feeling forced or contrived. So I think that's why we ended up throwing a lot of the other elements, like your parents, out of episode 7, which we discussed, because actually it just gave us a little bit of a chance to breathe and just to have this moment between these two people, and just see them develop a bit, and hopefully have a little bit of drama, so it isn't just all planes blowing up, and you know, as good as that stuff is.